When MC's development is so good, he's dragging every single character with him and forcing them through character development. I think this really just says a lot about ReZero's writing and how high quality this show really is. This episode really, hands down, I think this is my favorite episode of ReZero. I know I say that constantly, and I know people are like, you say this every single week, Chibi, but it's the truth. Every single week, ReZero, in my personal opinion, is always upping itself. It's always, outdoing the previous episodes and just showcasing how the weight of every single episode is carried on to the next episode and improves upon the content. It's basically how everybody feels about Attack on Titan, just how the episodes pile on up and you realize just how high quality it is. That's ReZero. And I love this episode for everything it stands for because it really kind of represents what Season 2 has been about and setting up for this very moment. For instance, we all know about Subaru's conflict with Roswaal, and thanks to Roswaal is why Subaru's went through so much hell since the very beginning. But we also know that Roswaal has indirectly and directly affected everyone else besides Subaru. He has messed with Ram's overall life. He has messed with Rim's life. He has messed with Amelia. He's messed with Puck. He has messed with, Otto. He has messed with Garfield. He has messed with everyone. We have known for a long time now, thanks to the conclusion of the first half of Season 2, that Roswaal has really done so much. And because of that, seeing Ram confront Roswaal and Amelia confront Roswaal speaks volumes about their character development since the beginning of the series. And I kind of want to dive into this first and why this is so impactful and why Roswaal even taking a step towards Amelia showcases her growth, but also Ram's growth and Roswaal actually growing in his own way as well. So, let's get into it. So basically, if you remember at the beginning of Season 2, when Subaru had his first conversation with Roswaal, before everything was revealed, the plot was really unfolding for Season 2, Subaru was wondering, why are you talking to me? And Ram is here, and we're not inviting Amelia. And then Roswaal's like, oh, we're just doing a little bit of conspiracy. We're going to basically not invite someone that we don't trust. Basically, Roswaal is just straight up saying he doesn't believe or trust in Amelia whatsoever. And it's been very fundamentally clear for a while now he has no care or trust for her, and other characters have basically reflected the exact same notion. Even Subaru himself at the start of Season 2 didn't really show like he fully trusted in Amelia's ability to overcome her past. But thanks to character development and overcoming so many things he had to deal with as well, he finally realized that he could look at Amelia for who she truly is and accept her for who she truly is, and then also give her that added push to allow her to be able to face her past and become the person she is in this episode. So we've known since the beginning nobody's really believed in Amelia, which makes that Ram scene even more impactful, but I'll talk about that in a second. But the point is Roswaal always didn't want to include Amelia in any form of conversation. When it came to anything form of diplomatic relationships or anything around the country or whatever, Amelia was never really invited. Roswaal did his own thing. He left Amelia out of everything. He didn't believe in her whatsoever. She was basically a step to get where he wanted. And we know this is what his character's been trying to convey, is that you sacrifice everything to attain that one goal. People are so weak that they can't hope to actually hold on to everything. They need to only focus on one thing in their life. And so because of that, he's willing to just throw everything away. Everything he cares about, everything to achieve that goal, which is, Akadana, the Witch of Greed. So, kind of fast forwarding a bit to this episode after everything we know, him confronting Amelia showcases that he acknowledged Amelia for her change, for her growth as a person. He came there to be very condescending and mocking, but deep down in that moment, he actually, for the very first time, you could see a glimpse that Roswaal was looking at Amelia actually as a true obstacle, as an opponent that, actually gave him a challenge, someone that actually he could kind of respect to a certain degree. That was Roswaal in his own way admitting to Amelia and to himself that, Amelia, you really have impressed me. You are truly not the person I thought you were. You're very strong-willed. To be where you're at right now, to be able to overcome that past knowing everything, it's insane. And so when the conversation obviously was going down a spiral for Roswaal, and he showed that smile, he closed his eyes, and he walked away, basically it showed that he realized he was defeated. He couldn't win in that moment. He was defeated thanks to Amelia being able to overcome something that was just next to impossible in Roswaal's eyes was actually done, and Subaru proving that Roswaal was actually wrong. And you could see that Roswaal's entire demeanor and personality changed in that very moment. He basically gave up. Even Amelia and Ram herself pointed out that you're giving up. Like, why are you giving up after everything, setting all this up, this, confrontation between me and you and everything? Why are you giving up right now just so easily? What's going on here? And this once again goes back into the mentality. Roswaal, when he realizes that he can't actually get that conclusion he wants within the book, he gives up. He's just done. He's just like, I'm done. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about this world. He doesn't care about the life he has. He cares about nothing. He just straight up gives up. And you could see in those final moments of his conversation with Amelia, he gave up. And you kind of see that when he marched away to go down, it was kind of like a child. Even though he knew he lost, he's still fighting for what he wants. He just doesn't want to actually give up in that moment. It really says a lot about Roswaal's character, just showing that he realizes that basically it's done, but he's still fighting anyways because he needs to. Because he made that vow, that bet with Subaru, so he can't really back down at this point. But he's at that point where he's like, I've lost. So it's so interesting. It's a very fascinating discussion with Roswaal, and you can see the way Amelia reacted to Roswaal was also really telling about his intent as well. Because we gotta remember, this is a man that will do anything to make sure that the world follows what's said in his book. He will do everything out of his power to make sure the world does the stuff that his book says. And so, if it means that he needs to get rid of obstacles, get rid of people to actually achieve what he wants, he will actually do it. So example, when he walked up to Amelia like that and you saw Ram being very scared, there was a lot of hostility there, because it was very likely that because of Roswaal now knowing that that conversation with Amelia happened, she walked out of that, tomb, he knew that she accomplished the impossible in his eyes. And so he probably might have resorted to a very violent act, for Subaru's entire plan can come undone. He might have done something incredibly rash, and that's kind of the whole point of that. Amelia reacting to such a degree and putting up, like, her hand and saying, stay back, don't come near us and all that. It's really telling to show that Roswaal was giving off a lot of animosity. He was potentially going to do something that, he would have definitely regretted. Now, let's just be honest. So, it's interesting to see that little development from Amelia as well, and being able to read the situation. And even Ram herself, someone that she, looks up to. She looks up to Roswaal. She had fear. You could just see the fear she had when Roswaal walked up, because, he could have done something where he would have just snapped in that moment to achieve the very goal he wanted. So now that I've kind of discussed that, and basically Roswaal's overall impression of Amelia in basically admitting defeat in that moment, we got to get into the nitty-gritty of Ram. I think at this point, many are going to start to see Ram for who she really is. Because, let's be honest here, ever since Season 1 of ReZero, people have always been attached to Rim. It makes sense. Rim was a major focus of a character in Season 1. It's thanks to her why Subaru is even here to this day where he's at right now. Rim had a big role to play in Subaru's character development and where he stands right now. And everybody's kind of glance past Ram, because Ram, she is the other sister. She's the sister of Ram. That's what people look at when they look at, Ram. They're like, she is the sister, and that's about it. She's someone that obviously was very gifted. It was taken away from her because of her losing her horn, the village, being burnt down, and her entire race basically being wiped out right there. And it just basically showed that, Ram was destined for a lot of potential, but she lost it. That's really all we knew at this point. And basically seeing her in this episode, it showcases that she's not just the sister of Rim, she's so much more. She has so much personality and so much room to grow, it's ridiculous. And so, let's talk about that. Just as how I talked about how Roswaal, he didn't believe in Amelia, he didn't trust in Amelia, and him walking up to Amelia like he did was basically him acknowledging Amelia, Ram was doing the exact same thing. She obviously went about it a little bit differently, But Ram never truly believed in Amelia, ever since the very beginning. She was only following the orders of her master, Roswaal. She was only doing things according to his will. Yes, Ram does things that doesn't always follow suit with what Roswaal wants, but overall, she never believed in Amelia. She never cared truly about everything that Amelia was capable of, because she didn't believe that Amelia was capable of anything without the help of others. And so when she looks upon Amelia and sees her, and Amelia standing there strong by herself, not needing Subaru to give her support, Puck to give her support, it proved a lot right then and there to Ram that Amelia has really grown as a person, and that the very thing that Ram thought that Amelia couldn't be, she was standing right in front of her. And Ram felt so disgusted with herself. She felt so ugly, because she's like, I felt like she couldn't accomplish this, but look, she was able to do this. And you gotta imagine there's probably some emotion she felt akin to probably how she felt about Rim in the past. You remember, in the past, Rim and Ram's relationship was kind of similar to that. You have it to where Rim had a lot of resentment to a certain degree towards Ram, because she wasn't as blessed with her abilities as an Ani. And because of that, when Ram lost her horn, Rim was actually a little bit happy about it. This was a big point of character development for Rim in Season 1, and her being able to kind of cope with that she wasn't really a good person by any means. And kind of seeing this, you could see another side, Ram showing this ugly side that she didn't really believe in Amelia, and basically because of that, she realized her mistake. She realized this ugly nature of her and what she was doing this entire time. And this little bet, the only reason why she had a bet to play and why she was doing this to begin with, to go up against Roswaal, was not because of Amelia, but because of Subaru. She never believed in Amelia overcoming this. She only believed in Subaru forcing Amelia to overcome this situation. So because of that, when she saw Amelia walk out there, she's like, I've been a fool. I've literally showcased the ugly nature of my very soul, and I apologize. And when she kneels before Amelia, it was her full-on acknowledgement that, Amelia, you are not weak. You are a very strong person, and you can accomplish things on your own without the help of others. You have grown so much. And that was a true acknowledgement from Ram. It's beautiful, honestly. And to extend this even further, she starts to talk about, Roswaal and all that, and why she's even kneeling in the first place. She's like, I know this is selfish, but I want you to help out Roswaal. I want you to ascend to the throne, and I want you to be able to do that, because that's what Roswaal wants. And if Roswaal, sees you get to the throne, he will accomplish the objective he wants. And she's like, my goal and objective hasn't changed since the very beginning. I want to help Roswaal achieve what he wants, but the path he's going down is not a path that was once the same. He has become very delusioned. He is someone that is willing to stain his hands and do something that you can't really come back from at this point. And Ram doesn't want to see that. Someone that she admires, someone she loves, she doesn't want to see go down a path of just evil. So she is doing anything in her power to try to put Roswaal back on the right path and allow him to obtain his goal without the use of bloodshed. So it's a beautiful scene, honestly, just to see that, her admitting and acknowledging certain things about Roswaal, admitting to stuff about herself, and showing this very vulnerable state that no one has really gotten to see. Isn't it very interesting to think about? We've never seen Ram in that type of state. She has never shown that very vulnerable state to anyone. I don't even think she's probably ever shown that to her sister Rim. So to see her show that side to Amelia really goes to show the level of trust that she has. She has never shown that side as well to Subaru. So once again, Ram's trust in Amelia has really reached an all-time high. So that shifts over into the Roswaal stuff and what Roswaal said to Ram when he talked about what he actually saw. Ram's like, how much did you actually see? What did you see when I was talking to Amelia? And he's like, I saw you kneel before her. And he's like, you're quite the actress. And this kind of leads into the whole discussion with Roswaal and Ram and what that kind of means towards the end. And so I'm going to give context to the whole thing to deal with Ram and Roswaal. So he was like, you were quite the actress. And so in Roswaal's mind, he truly felt that Ram was just putting on an act for the sake of Roswaal. That's what Roswaal felt in his mind. He felt like Ram couldn't possibly have truly went against him. Ram couldn't have possibly have truly believed in Amelia. In his deluded mind, he really felt like Amelia, was just getting like a pity act from, Ram, and that Ram wasn't really showing true, genuine feelings towards her. That's what Roswaal felt. And so in that moment, it showcased that Roswaal didn't really see Ram for who she was. Roswaal didn't see Ram for her kindness, her compassion towards Amelia, and how wrong she was. And even though I know I talked about in this video already that Roswaal realized his mistake and his, what he was doing and that he lost, he still doesn't want to admit it. He does not want to admit it. He's harboring it and holding it in and does not want to admit that whatsoever. He does not want to admit that defeat. Even though he's so quick to give up, he still doesn't want to admit that, his book isn't all-knowing and that, he can't win this. He does not want to admit that in any means at all. So because of this scene, it showcases once again the correlations of just how different and similar Roswaal and Subaru is. Remember what Roswaal was saying in the last episode and this episode. He's like, we're the type of individuals that like to force our ideals on the ones we love or the ones we care about. And in this case, what Roswaal was doing with Ram, he was forcing his very ideals, his feelings and everything on Ram, thinking that she was putting on an act and wasn't really looking at what she was truly doing. And this separates the differences between Subaru and, Roswaal, is that Subaru, yes, at first he was definitely not looking at Amelia for who she really was, but eventually he just is like, look, you're a pain in the butt, you annoy me, you're not always doing everything that, should actually be common sense, but, it happens, but at the same time, I still care about you, I still love you, I'll accept you for who you are. And it showcased that Subaru admitted she had flaws, and that she wouldn't always do everything he wanted, and he still loved her for it. But Roswaal is not someone that's like that. He's putting Ekidana or anyone else around him on a pedestal and not viewing them for who they really are. He refuses to. He is not looking at them as people. He's just looking at their ideal, what he views them as, his ideal version of them. So that was a big difference there, showcasing that Roswaal is very deluded on his viewpoint on those around him. So let's go further into this. So the conversation with Roswaal and Ram was very important because it revealed a lot of mystery. We once again, we know that Ram and Rim's entire clan was annihilated by the Witches Cult. We know this. This has been mentioned since Season 1. And that explained why Ram and Rim had so much resentment to the Witches Cult. Why Rim was so angry with Subaru when he had the witches sent on him. That explains so much at that point because of just that animosity she held towards the Witches Cult. It does make you wonder if she really ever knew about Roswaal's book, Rim knowing about it. But the point though is that Roswaal reveals that he was responsible for the attack apparently on Ram and Rim's village. And this makes you wonder, wait, what? Like, from everything we know at this point, Roswaal isn't a witch's cultist. Yes, he may follow a witch, which, the Witch of Greed, but he isn't necessarily witch's cult. He isn't a Sin Archbishop of the witch's cult. So, because of that, it's like, wait a minute, so if he did cause the attack, does that mean that Roswaal has connections and affiliation with the witch's cult? And it starts to make you wonder, does this mean that he was connected to Juice, Sloth? Did he actually call upon Sloth to be there? Or is it just a strange coincidence? Whatever it may be, it does make you wonder. I mean, we know Roswaal will do anything to get what he wants. He will manipulate things down a certain way in the world to achieve his goal, sacrifice everything along his way. So we know for a fact that most likely there's more to the story than meets the eye. He might be saying the things he's saying to flare up Ram, or maybe he is telling the truth. Whatever the case may be, the point still stands is he doesn't understand the clear reason to why Ram was standing in front of him towards the end of the episode. She was standing there not because she wanted vengeance. She wasn't standing there because she wanted to get back at Roswaal for forcing her into an apparent vow with him. She's standing there because she's looking at him as someone she deeply loves and admires. That is what she is doing. And Roswaal cannot see that. He cannot see what Ram is actually doing. He only views someone that is viewing him as an evil entity, as a villain. That's what he thinks Ram is viewing him as. So it's a really interesting detail about this episode, showcasing, everything about Roswaal, what's wrong with him, and once again, what separates him from Subaru. So enough of that. Let's talk about Puck popping up in that scene. Puck appearing is probably going to make everybody wonder what's going on there. Well, remember, Puck briefly appeared when Subaru was fighting Garfield. You had it to where Subaru stabbed, the crystal in Garfield, and then Garfield shrunk down back into his normal form. You could assume from that moment, most likely, Puck absorbed all the mana from Garfield's transformation and stored it into himself, and that's kind of what allowed him to stay once again a little bit longer in this form to appear before Roswaal and help out Ram. So that's kind of what's going on there, is the fact that thanks to him stealing mana from Garfield is why Puck is there. Clarification on that. And on top of that, too, there is a brief mention that there is a continuation of their fight, and this was briefly mentioned a long time ago, that when Roswaal first met Amelia, a fight broke out between Roswaal and Puck. So we know for a fact they fought briefly in the past, and basically what's going on now is a continuation of that. Puck and Roswaal are truly going to get the fight now, setting up for, obviously, a crazy fight for the next week's episode. Speaking of fights, let's move over to Garfield and Elsa. Garfield had an amazing scene in this episode. He basically said the best offense is the best defense. And this is something I've always loved, and it's so true as well. He's like, look, I'm very powerful, and I have shields now on my arms, and so I will use these shields to protect those behind me, keeps with his overall mentality of a person. And on top of that, he will go forward and break through walls as well. I really enjoy that, basically showcasing how much Garfield has and hasn't changed as a person, keeping the consistency of what he was saying to Roswaal in the previous episode. And him marching towards Elsa is leading up to a very interesting fight, because it's like, I don't think anyone ever expected something like that. And also, the reveal of Garfield being able to leave Sanctuary is going to catch, I think, everybody for a loop as well, because it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me he could always leave? And it makes sense, honestly, how he could have always have left. It's just one thing that was always holding him back was his trauma. He didn't want to leave Sanctuary because he saw his mother die out there, and he didn't want to go out there and confirm it, and he had his granny, Ruzu and all that there, so he didn't want to actually leave Sanctuary. He had no real reason to leave Sanctuary, so he stayed there. So seeing him leave Sanctuary once again shows character development, but also him standing before Elsa, it's like this is going to be a very intense fight. He might have to turn into a demi-human to be able to actually, fight her. So, that moves on into the Beatrice stuff. So, Beatrice, she has a brief scene towards the end with Subaru appearing, and he's like, I'm about to drag you out of here, and you're coming with me. You're gonna see the sunlight. And we know where this is leading. We know what Beatrice has gone through. She is very lonely, isolated, depressed, and Subaru wants to drag her out of that. He might not be able to fulfill the full-on contract that Beatrice wants, but he wants to prove to Beatrice that everything that she's fighting for to hold on to with this empty book that's not telling her anything, she doesn't need to do that. She can create and fill up her own story without the need of that book. That's what Subaru is there for. It's a very impactful moment, and it's truly blessed, honestly, to see Subaru's just standing there right now. And speaking of which, standing, we have Petra as well having a very great moment within this episode. And there's something briefly that is showcased, but I don't think many are going to truly grasp. It's the fact that Petra was opening up doors. And upon opening up these doors, she probably indirectly extended Rem's life. Because you gotta remember what, Elsa is there for. She's there to get rid of Petra, she's there to get rid of Frederica, and she's there to get rid of the shut-in Beatrice. And because of that, she has no idea Rem is even there. We know if she sees Rem, she'll definitely do something. But because of the doors all being open, and she's very aware of Beatrice's door crossing, if a door's open, she has no need to really go probably into that room. So, effectively, Petra most likely saved Rem's life by opening up doors. So I just wanted to point that one out if you were unaware of it. But I think I'm gonna wrap up this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Helps with the algorithm. Leaving a like, leaving a comment, all that. It really does help me out. I appreciate it greatly. And with that, guys, be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.